Good evening to all of you. You're watching Lok Sabha TV. I'm Anurag Punetha with you. Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in India. I mean, this is much awaited spectacle of meeting of the two leaders of two most populous nation on the earth, and this was awaited. And this meeting is happening at the time when the relation between the two nations were not good in recent times, especially when India decided to abrogate Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. China reacted negatively, and we all know that how Chinese foreign minister supported Pakistan at United Nations General Assembly elections. But as the indications are coming, as the two sides are reciprocating and conciliatory notes are coming from China and New Delhi, both the nations wants to take relation further. And in fact, China has said that what happened at the Wuhan summit last year in April, the spirit of the Wuhan summit should go further, and that is the reason that the both leaders are meeting in Tamil Nadu's Mamallapuram, which is a historic town in terms of the historicity between the two nations are concerned, to discuss furthermore that how things can go further as far as the India and China relations are concerned. And when India looks normally the relation through the prism of the Pakistan as well, we are going to discuss all these things in this edition of Public Forum with a couple of the guests from international community. And joining me for the discussion, Professor Momin Chen from Taiwan. Professor Chen is a director of the Center for Studies on South Asia and the Middle East. He is from National Ching Sang University, Taiwan. Very warm welcome to the show, Professor Momin. My first question, that how do you see the relations? Because the kind of optics are being shown by the two nations, China and India. And the kind of conciliatory notes that are coming from, especially from China. How do you see the relations going forward? Because both the nations are talking to take the spirit of the Wuhan summit further. How hopeful you are?
I see. Okay. Well, we know that Xi Jinping now he is already been serving as the Chinese president for 6 years, and Indian Prime Minister Modi also win his second term, and they met a few times. The last time was in Wuhan last year. I think this is the time that both leaders try to stabilize the relationship, because India and China they have problems. Border issues, Kashmir, Tibet, all these problems cannot be solved in such a short time. It has been there for a long time. But both sides also have expectations in terms of the trade, in terms of the regional security, and in terms of cooperating in other global or regional issues. So I think that this summit or Xi Jinping's visit, we cannot see that it's an opportunity for India and China to solve all major problems in the past, but it will be the opportunity for both sides to stabilize the relations in the next few years, and they want to be friends on certain issues, but also be clear with each other on the positions of both sides.
Okay, but what are the reasons that the two nations are talking positively at the moment, especially almost a month ago when the things were not that good, especially at the UNGA, how the things happened there, especially the Chinese behaved and India behaved and India countered. So what changed within a month, according to you?
Well, I don't see any change, because I think this visit by Xi Jinping to India has been planned for a long time. Several months ago, it has been decided he will visit in October. And for any Chinese leader, no matter Xi Jinping or Hu Jintao or whoever who visit a foreign country, and Chinese government and Chinese media always try to create an atmosphere that this is a friendly environment, and leaders were talking about things positively. So they will not really talk about the conflicts, disputes, and of course, there will be differences on many issues, including Kashmir, but they will be not on the table. They will probably discuss this under the table. So I would say that media or the public occasion, we will not see, the real dispute between both leaders.
Okay. Professor Chen, I would appreciate you if you stay with us for a few more minutes, because one more guest, Mr. Michael Kugelman, that he is a Deputy Director and Senior Associate for the South Asia Program Wilson Center from Washington, has joined me over the Skype as well. Very warm welcome on the show, Michael Kugelman. Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, is here in India, and both the nations are talking to take the relations further, and the spirit of the Wuhan summit that happened last year further. How hopeful you are? And because we normally see the relations between India and China through the prism of Pakistan, and in fact what happened between Pakistan and China recently are not that good. In fact, Prime Minister of Pakistan went to China. In fact, China told Pakistani establishment to somehow solve the Kashmir issue bilaterally on the agreement of the what normally happens between India and Pakistan. So this is being termed as a jolt to Pakistan. How hopeful you are? Is there any strain on China-Pakistan relations or not, in your understanding?
Well, I think we all know that the Chinese and the Pakistanis have a long and deep relationship, though, I would argue that Pakistan has always valued the relationship with China more than China does with Pakistan. And Pakistan is a country that, badly seeks relationships with significant and influential powers, and it has those with the likes of China and also with the United States, for that matter. I would argue that the relationship between China and Pakistan at this point remains quite strong. I do think that there have been some very interesting developments with the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which was meant to bring these two countries closer together. However, there has been rising concern in Islamabad about the viability of CPEC, just because of the financial implications and the debt burden that Pakistan has taken on through this huge infrastructure project. And it's almost like the project has lost some momentum. That could have some implications for the broader relationship, though I would argue that at the end of the day, the China-Pakistan relationship is quite strong, and in fact, the revocation of Article 370 may have strengthened that relationship further, just because China has opposed that move just as Pakistan has.
Okay. I would come again to Professor Chen Momin as well. Professor Chen, there have been suggestions. In fact, the Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Luo also said that meeting that will take place in Chennai will set the tone for the next stage of development for China-India relation. And he somehow suggests that it is hoped that India, for its part, would do its best to steer bilateral drive towards enabling. In fact, there are suggestions that India should take part in BRI project. India should also come forward to somehow make Asia great again. That are the kind of suggestions that are coming from China. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that this will be a great opportunity for India by talking and meeting with Xi Jinping and Chinese officials to see China's real intention in South Asia. Because we know that China is expanding in the entire South Asian region and also Indo-Pacific. But what's China's ultimate strategic goal over there? And how does China want to see India's role in this region? And what does China want India to do in the BRI projects? I think this is very important for India to figure out by talking to Xi and try to find out what China is really want over there, particularly in the military, strategic, and other, the regional investment issues. I think a very, very important chance for India to figure out what China really want over there.
Okay, but before I go to the Michael, I have one more question to Professor Chang. Because CPEC project, there are some reports that CPEC project is slowing down, and in fact China is losing that interest. And why there is a slowdown in your understanding? Does it indicate that the China has realized or realizing probably that the putting such huge money into Pakistan, into the Balochistan is not a sound idea?
Well, I would say that China now is not just only working with Pakistan on the CPEC. They're also expanding their influence through Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Malaysia, and other countries. So I think China is trying different channels to penetrate into the Indian Ocean. And CPEC and their cooperation with Pakistan is only one of those channels they are building up. So that China does has a grand strategy to dominate the Indian Ocean, and the CPEC is only part of it.
Okay,
that's my view.
Okay. The same question I would be asking to Michael Kugelman. Michael, what's your understanding about this? I mean, are there some strains on the Pakistan-China relation? Because there are growing voices within the China that keeping the relations with the Pakistan and supporting Pakistan internationally somehow dent the image of the China internationally as well. And somehow that might be the reason that China is not that interested now to put money into the CPEC project. And that is the kind of the thing that is happening. And probably China is slowing down the process of the entire CPEC thing.
No, I don't think that the slowdown in momentum in CPEC is related to the Article 370 repeal, just because we've been seeing these concerns about CPEC for a period of time well before India made its Article 370 move. I think that there are a lot of factors at play. One, as I mentioned before, is Pakistan's concern about the financial implications of taking on so much debt at a time when Pakistan already faces a very serious balance of payments crisis. But I do think that China increasingly worries about the viability of the project itself. I think that it worries about the implications of assuming that Pakistan could take on so much debt when it's not in a position to pay it back. But all this said, what I'm talking about here, these concerns in both countries, China and Pakistan, about the viability of CPEC, these concerns are not articulated publicly. And I think that puts the two countries in an awkward position because it's an important project for both countries. And I think if you were to have either capital start to publicly voice hesitation, reluctance about taking this project forward, that would be a really big deal. And it's actually quite noticeable the few times when you have had a Pakistani senior official go on the record and talk about the need to sort of slow things down and things like that. You hear Islamabad take back, sort of walk back those words very quickly. So it's a very delicate matter. There are problems behind the scenes with the project, but the messaging from both Islamabad and Beijing remains very strong, very emphatic, very positive. And I do think the project still is there. It's going to go forward, though I do think that Islamabad may try to slow things down. Quickly, one more factor here: the IMF. Pakistan has a new bailout package from the IMF, and there's reason to believe that the IMF package has stipulated that Pakistan be careful not to use IMF funding to pay back CPEC loans, and so that could give Pakistan pause as well.
Okay, fair enough.